around the globe.
Death by Design on Al Jazeera.
Mixed signals from Washington over military action against Syria. Hello and welcome to Al Jazeera, live from our headquarters in Doha with me, Elizabeth Puranam. Also ahead, Pakistan's Supreme Court bans former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif from politics for life. A show of force as Beijing stages naval exercises in the disputed South China Sea. Plus,
I'm Malcolm Webb on Lake Albert. Since the beginning of this year, tens of thousands of people have fled the Democratic Republic of Congo in boats, and they've crossed the lake to Uganda to get away from fighting. We'll be retracing their journey.
the US Defense Secretary has played down expectations of an imminent missile strike on Syria. James Mattis said any strike would have to be balanced with the threat of creating a wider conflict. But earlier on Thursday, President Trump said a missile strike could happen soon or not at all. Alan Fisher reports now from Washington, D.C.
James Mattis was already scheduled to meet lawmakers to talk about the budget, but with a growing threat of military action against Syria, this gave the House Armed Services Committee the chance to drill for more information.
But what is the policy of the Department of Defense and strategy regarding the Assad regime, its future in the Syrian civil war, or is there a strategy?
With the president warning Russia in a tweet that nice, new and smart missiles were heading to Syria, his defense secretary insisted there was concern any strike could lead to a bigger battle.
We're trying to stop the murder of innocent people, but on a strategic level, it's how do we keep this from escalating out of control?
The idea of de-escalating the tension is also a theme coming out of Moscow, with a warning.
Russia will protect its people on the ground. This is obvious, which is this is the task for each and every country in the world, to protect its citizens on the ground. So our people, our soldiers there, they're not for conquering Syrian people. They are for protecting Syrian people.
Across Capitol Hill, CIA Director Mike Pompeo was meeting senators seeking confirmation as the new Secretary of State. When President Trump launched his last attack on Syria almost exactly a year ago, he didn't seek authorization for the use of military force from Congress. Pompeo says he won't need it this time either.
I believe that he has the authority he needs to do that today. I don't believe we need a new AUMF for the president to engage in the activity that you described.
But uncertainty of what's to come still lingers, not least because the president says a decision still hasn't been made.
We're looking very, very seriously, very closely at that whole situation, and we'll see what happens, folks. We'll see what happens.
What may sway a final decision is Washington's uncertainty has allowed Syria and their Russian allies to move men and machinery and protect important weapons systems, and whether any military action would put American troops in Syria at even greater risk. Alan Fisher, Al Jazeera, Washington.
Syria was also on the agenda at the UN Security Council on Thursday. Mike Hanna has more from the UN.
The Security Council held a closed-door session on Syria, this called by Bolivia, to discuss what it called the rising rhetoric. However, the Russian ambassador, Vasily Nebenzia, came and spoke to the media after the meeting. He said the immediate priority was to avert war. When asked whether he meant war between Russia and the US, this is what he had to say.
We cannot exclude any possibilities, unfortunately, because we saw messages that are coming from Washington. They were very bellicose. They know we are there. I hope, I wish there was a dialogue and through appropriate channels of this to avert any dangerous developments.
And yet another Security Council meeting on Syria will be taking place Friday. This has been called by Russia, which has also asked the Secretary General to brief the Council.
The Let's move on to other news now, and breaking news from Pakistan, where the Supreme Court has banned former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif from politics for life. A 5-judge bench announced the decision in the capital, Islamabad. The 3-time former Prime Minister was removed from office last year on corruption allegations. Well, let's get more on this now. We're joined by our Pakistan correspondent, Kamal Haider. He is on the phone, I believe, in Islamabad. He's live in Islamabad. Kamal, was this expected, and what does it mean for Sharif's political career? I do apologize. Do we have a connection with... We don't have a connection with our correspondent in Islamabad, but we will go to him as soon as we establish that. But we'll move on to other news for now. China's Navy is to hold live-fire drills in the Taiwan Strait next week. The exercises come at a time of heightened tension with the US over Washington's support for the island republic, while China regards Taiwan as a breakaway province. The announcement came as China's Navy concluded its biggest ever fleet review in the contested waters of the South China Sea. Our China correspondent Adrian Brown reports.
In the sea, where so many countries now have territorial claims, an unprecedented display of Chinese military power. Images likely to unsettle some of China's neighbors. It was the top story on Chinese state television, running for more than 22 minutes. The fleet review involved 48 warships, a nuclear-powered submarine, and China's sole operating aircraft carrier, the Liaoning. The display also included 76 aircraft, including bombers, as well as 10,000 servicemen and women. Dressed for battle, issuing orders, their commander-in-chief, President Xi Jinping, armed with words for a military he's determined to strengthen.
Building a strong navy has never become so urgent as today. We'll carry out the thought of building a strong military in a new era.
Just 48 hours earlier, before an audience that included world leaders, President Xi had sought to present China as the guarantor of free trade. Now, in the South China Sea that contains some of the world's busiest shipping lanes, he had another message. These are our waters, and we have the strength to defend them. The display happened as 3 US Navy aircraft carrier battle groups passed through these same contested waters. China claims almost 90% of the South China Sea, and for the past few years has been reinforcing its claim by building artificial islands. It denies they have a military purpose. Some of these warships are now sailing towards the narrow strait that separates China from Taiwan to take part in a live fire drill next Wednesday, the first such exercise there in more than 20 years. Adrian Brown, Al Jazeera, Beijing.
Let's go back to that breaking news out of Pakistan now, where the Supreme Court has disqualified former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif from politics for life. Our correspondent, Kamal Haider, is joining us live from Islamabad. So what does this mean, Kamal, for Sharif and for his ruling Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz Party?
Well, that's an excellent question. One thing is pretty clear, that Nawaz Sharif's political future is no more. He, of course, was gunning to become the country's prime minister, despite the fact that he was disqualified last year. After that, the ruling party came out with legislation in parliament which would allow for Mr. Sharif to be the head of his party. That was struck down by the court, saying that anyone who violates the constitutional clause 62(1)(f), which pertains to honesty and righteousness, will be disqualified. Now, there were questions as to for what period of length would that disqualification hold, and therefore the Supreme Court coming out clearly saying that anyone disqualified under Article 62(1)(f) would stand disqualified for life. So that, of course, would come as a big disappointment for Nawaz Sharif, but the opposition and people across will hail this as a victory, because they say that anyone who is guilty and who is not worthy of leading the government should not do so. So, of course, the government not happy, but indeed a landmark verdict.
You mentioned the opposition, Kamal. How is this going to play into that pending general election in Pakistan?
Well, after Nawaz Sharif's disqualification, Shahid Khaqan Abbasi was made the Prime Minister. His younger brother, Shahbaz Sharif, that is the younger brother of Nawaz Sharif, was made the party head. So his party, of course, will continue and take part in the elections. The government only has 2 months. It will be completing its tenure by the end of May. So this will not affect the elections per se. But Nawaz Sharif's disqualification will come as a huge disappointment for the ruling party, which is in power right now.
Kamal, thank you very much for that. For now, that's Kamal Haider with the latest from Islamabad. Thank you. To Sri Lanka now, where the president has suspended parliament for a month amid a growing rift between him and the prime minister. Supporters of